Emmy Collet and Jake Coates first met way back in elementary school and ended up rekindling almost a decade later. Their love story is so heartwarming that it could be straight out of a movie. The young lovebirds had it cool office ideas for all and prepared to spend the rest of their lives together. Unfortunately, something happened that transformed their whole lives. Keep reading to hear the tragic love story of Collet and Coates. The two went to the same primary school and created a strong friendship at such a young age. At 11 years old, Jake Coates from Monmouth, Wales, and Emmy Collet from Luckington, Wiltshire, met for the first time. She said she first developed this crush when she was just 11 years old. In an interview, Emmy Collet reminisced in the early days of their relationship and referred to her feelings for Jake as a schoolgirl crush. She said by age 13, she was nicknamed his lobster, based on a reference to the TV show Friends. It's safe to say these two were childhood sweethearts. They had truly fallen for one another, and this was a movie-type love story in the making. Unfortunately for these two, their early romance was at stake when high school was winding down, and it was time to make choices for their futures. At the time, Jake wrote Emmy a note saying, "You are my everything, and if you still can put up with me, I will marry you one day." The pair were brought to a standstill when their futures may potentially break them apart. These two were conflicted and truly loved one another. They wanted to attend different colleges, and it was known that couples split before college or during. College is known as a fun time and a place with parties and temptations. Although they chose different universities, the two managed to stay close friends. Inevitably, their relationship wasn't the same and had substantially drifted, but they managed to reunite again in 2015. It seemed as if everything was going perfectly. Little did they know the surprises waiting for them. They were separated for 10 years, and when they reached their 20s, they finally came back together. The couple was ecstatic that they were back together. It was like fate. At the time, Jake was in Sydney, Australia, practicing medicine, and Emmy was a teacher in London. But they were confident they could handle the challenge. Although they were 10,000 miles apart from each other, they had no intention of giving up. They kept in contact every day with FaceTime and even visited each other quite often. 6 months later, their arrangement changed. Over time, the young lovebirds were focusing more and more on their future together. In 2016, Jake could not control himself and decided to conduct a plan involving the note he wrote young Emmy once upon a time. Jake wasn't the type to make promises and abandon them. Thus, he vowed to make his plan come true. He followed through with a trip to the Philippines, where he would propose on a cliff with the fireworks in the background. Before he could do this, something unexpected occurred. A few weeks before their exciting vacation, Emmy took a normal trip to visit her boyfriend in Australia. On their last day together, she asked Jake to give her a simple neck massage because she wanted to relax before her flight. It was an easy request, which Jake obliged. He was happy to help the love of his life relax, and it wasn't a difficult request. It was one that the two of them regularly did, whether it be to set the mood or just help the other distress a little. Jake felt something startling and was in a bit of shock at what he had just found. He placed his hands on her neck, and as he began to gently stroke and massage the love of his life, something was not right. Whatever it was left him in complete shock. He admits that his blood ran cold. They were sitting in a restaurant on a normal Sunday afternoon when he noticed something wrong with his girlfriend's neck. Jake noticed a lump in Emmy's neck and jumped into panic mode. We were just two people in love, lying on a beach in Sydney without a care in the world. Who would have known what was to happen next? He recollected. Everything inside him wanted to yell at Emmy and ask her why she didn't mention it before. but instead, he insisted that she go for a checkup. He told her to schedule an appointment with her GP immediately. She did exactly this, but what she found out wasn't exactly what they were hoping for. Although they were preoccupied imagining themselves on the beaches of the Philippines, this quickly changed. Normally, the couple should have been energetically packing for their romantic adventure when they received the results for Emily Collet's exam. Also, it had reached her spine, lungs, liver, and bones. The worst part, it was irreversible. Unfortunately for this couple, they were told terrible news that Emmy was amongst the youngest people in the country with a rare kind of thyroid cancer. They were ready to spend their lives together when a tragic event altered these plans. When they first fell in love, they could have never imagined that something like this would happen down the line. Emmy had complained about not feeling well, being a bit off and out of sorts lately. However, her neck was never a concern, and she had not noticed anything different in the area until Jake pointed it out. They had only been reunited for 6 months when they heard this news. Jack left his life in Sydney to be with Emmy and Britain. When he arrived, they were confident that this wasn't the end for them. The couple refused to succumb to the diagnosis and were ready to battle the disease together. Emmy kept her positive perspective on life and approached her situation with a smile on her face. She stayed true to her being and truly made the best of each and every moment. Everyone came together to help Emmy. She admitted that she had never been happier in her life with all the love she was being thrown. She appreciated the outpour of love and support from the perspective that those individuals were there for Jake too. Despite her optimism, Emmy was handed more upsetting news. The devastating diagnosis was not the end, because even worse, Emmy was told that if she was diagnosed prior, then she would have made a complete recovery. Something completely out of her control and something she could have found sooner. This made her heart sink even more. The doctors added that she could not have kids. She wasn't accepting it. She was heartbroken when she heard this, as she had dreamt of being a mother, and especially wanted to give Jake young ones. Amid all the tragedy, she still saw instances of hope. Instead of the extravagant plan he asked her over a cup of tea in bed. After a few weeks of putting his proposal on hold, Jake did not want to wait any longer. She was ecstatic, and of course, said yes. This wasn't the end, not even close. She excitingly began the wedding planning, and the upcoming big day gave her something to look forward to doing during the many treatments. After all, Emmy's life motto was smile, love, and be kind. She would always stay true to that. They weren't the type of people to focus on the negatives, but instead, they wanted to enjoy all their remaining time together. However, Emmy was not going to let anything keep her down. She knew just how precious life was. After she was told she had cancer, they also instructed her to stay out of the sun because of her medication. It was a great time to relax, and when they came back, Emmy did something motivating. In line with their desire to live every moment to the fullest, they went on an unexpected trip to Dubai for 5 days. Emmy wasn't interested in a pity party and instead wanted everyone to be uplifting around her through the journey. She was determined to stay active and healthy, and even began a fundraising endeavor for Royal Marsden Hospital with Jake. They culminated the event with matching tattoos. Jake and Emmy managed to complete a 2,000-kilometer bike ride around Europe, starting in London and making their way to Copenhagen, raising over £140,000, over $195,000. This young couple began as childhood sweethearts, which lead to soulmates and lifelong partners. Although they had a few years of separation and a roller coaster journey, they finally walked down the aisle in September 2016. Despite the uncertain future that lies ahead, Emmy was glowing on her wedding day when she recited her vows. Jake admitted that the night before his wedding day, he couldn't sleep thinking about marrying his true love. Their love story wasn't over just yet. Their story touched the lives of millions, and they were receiving more attention. Emmy used her treatment period as an opportunity to write children's books because of her love for writing and teaching. Jake was recognized for his charity work for his wife and the hospital. He has rewarded the honor of ITV Fundraiser of the Year at the Pride of Britain Awards. People mostly learned about their story through Emmy's blog detailing her battle. Emmy had no idea the impact that her blog would cause. She started blogging as a sense of catharsis for herself and to reach a few people, but the impact was much more than she ever imagined. Emmy celebrated the marriage of her best friend Leona. She continued to live the best life she could and did not let her illness get in the way. She was determined to make as many memories as she could. Leona ran on behalf of Emmy in a marathon spreading awareness about cancer. She also had bracelets given to all at her wedding in support of Emmy. Regardless of what was going on, Emmy and Jake still wanted to create a family together and be parents. Since Emmy couldn't have kids, she planned to have a surrogate. And minutes after posting on her blog, she had tons of women offering their assistance. They were still unsure of Emmy's time frame, but they felt positive about bringing a child to the world. They consulted reproductive specialists who took samples from prospective parents that would be enough for 9 embryos. They did not know how much time they had, and they wanted to be safe. She was the mother of one and lived close to the couple. While she wasn't incredibly acquainted with the couple, she was intrigued to help after hearing the story. Liz reached out to the couple, and they planned to meet. One of the many who were touched by Emmy and Jake was a former classmate named Liz Begg. They referred to her as their angel and went with her to the implantation procedure. As Emmy's chemo treatment progressed, she and her husband continued meeting with Liz before deciding she was the right fit. This baby was so special because it meant that the memory of Emmy would live on, even if she didn't, actually. 3 weeks later, she took a pregnancy test, and the 3 of them were shaking in their boots, awaiting the results. Jake practiced medicine, and he used what he learned in school to help his love with her journey. His experience allowed him to help her check up with her condition thoroughly, including tending to her stitches and applying injections. This was both positive and negative for Jake because he had the answers to the more complicated questions. Unfortunately, this also meant that he had to answer the hard questions with truthful answers. Jake was happy to be able to be such a strong support system for Emmy, even more so because of his medical experience. On one hand, he liked having this role. Having to take a professional stance allowed him to help Emmy understand the medical lingo and get to the bottom of what was going on with her. The couple could not believe their eyes. Liz was truly their angel. 3 weeks had passed since the implantation process, and the 3 got together again so Liz could take 3 pregnancy tests that all said positive. Jake and Emmy were in awe at how things were turning around for them. Liz recollects on this moment, and that seeing the look in Emmy's eyes was truly incredible. It was an incredible day the 2 shared, but it was sadly the last. Not even a full hour passed after seeing the results, and Emmy's eyes began to close, and she never woke up. Jake never left her side, and after an 18-month battle, the 31-year-old warrior passed away on June 16, 2017. Although Jake was heartbroken, what kept him going was the fact that Emmy knew a baby was on its way. Jake admitted, "She was my north, my south, my east, my west. The reason I wanted to wake up every morning and be a better person." However, there was much more to be told. Jake was already struggling with the passing of his soulmate when he discovered Liz's pregnancy was not as successful as they had hoped. Liz tried 2 more times, but finally stopped when it was clear there was no use. He was so grateful for Liz Begg and how selfless she had been. Despite how disappointed he wasn't going to let the grief consume him. Jake Coates felt like he lost everything when Emmy passed away. Everything reminds him of his wife, but what inspires him is the thought that she is up in heaven with her baby. In the face of all the tragedy, something else was waiting for him. He admitted that there wasn't a moment that passed where he didn't think of her or miss her. The heartwarming tale of Emmy and Jake Coates became a headline story in Britain. Inevitably, he will always miss Emmy and carry around this loss. Still, after she died, it was the subject of news, and advances in Jake's life also reached the news. However, 8 months later, he managed to fall in love again. At the beginning of 2018, Jake made a promise to run 10 marathons in the span of just 2 short months to raise money in the memory of Emmy and the hospital that treated her. He traveled to international locations such as Iceland and met a new love interest, event planner Jenna Selby. He was rebuilding his heart and uploaded a post about his new love in February. Soon his posts transitioned from memories of his wife to his new romance. Jake seemed to be moving forward with his new partner Jenna and her infant. However, the public began to notice remarkable similarities between her and Emmy. Media outlets described her as Emmy's look-alike. He received considerable support for finding love again, with, of course, some criticism. In light of this, he had a great response to the comments. Jake received many support and good vibes from people, while there was a substantial amount of hate. Jake was criticized for how fast he moved on and for how he showed it off. Her family, and specifically her sister Sophie, was most outraged. While he had people defend him online, Jake had the best response of all. Jake has gone through a significant amount of loss in the last year. He responded by saying that he follows the motto of doing his best every day and trying his best to be happy. All he can really do is try to move forward at 32 years old. Also, he said that all the negative comments by strangers were deleted because he does not accept negativity in his life. Just like everything in his life, meeting Jenna was completely unexpected. However, this was a great unexpected event. Jenna brought life back to Jake, and she was so helpful in pushing him back into his life. He recognizes how short life is and the importance of enjoying every second. He is incredibly grateful for Jenna's support and is always looking forward. This does not mean he will forget Emmy. On the contrary, she is always part of him. Jake was never able to have a child of his own with his first love, Emmy. After many attempts, he decided it was time to stop trying. Thus, his new relationship with Jenna's son was extra special for him. They loved each other and developed a tight bond immediately. The couple is extremely happy together, and they are enjoying every minute together. Fortunately, because of his past, Jake valued his time with Jenna's son, and for him, it was extremely meaningful. In light of this, he makes it his mission to volunteer at the Royal Marsden Hospital regularly. After what he went through with Emmy and his experience as a doctor, Jake has a fair share of knowledge on cancer and recovery. Jake also leads his art class for the children in the hospital. He posts about his encounters with individuals he meets on Instagram to help raise awareness. Jake is using his love of art, experience with medicine alongside his love and remembrance for Emmy in order to make any kind of difference he can. He tries his best to volunteer there as much as he can and shares his experiences on Instagram to raise awareness. Everything Jake went through made him understand how difficult it can be, being a cancer patient as well as the family members. After Jake announced he was planning to run 10 marathons for charity, his followers were inspired by this and offered to donate nearly $9,000 to his fund called the Emmy Coates Fund, as well as the Royal Marsden Hospital. Remarkably, Jake completed all 9 marathons in just 8 short weeks, in honor of his late wife. He mentioned in a Facebook post that he drove over 2,000 miles, lost a toe along the way, and paid quite a bit in entry fees. But regardless, it was all worth it for the love of his life. Emmy was a primary school teacher and had a love for children, and also children's books. While she was battling cancer, she often would spend time writing books to ease the pain and distract herself. The books were created in light of the bike and trailer she owned with her husband Jake. They were named Tara and Tyrone, so this was the name she chose, perfectly fitting to embrace and embody the couple. She was in charge of writing the texts, and Jake did the drawing. They eventually created a publishing business together. This combined what they both loved, and was a way for them to work closely together in what was already a great relationship. While Emmy was in chemotherapy treatment, she finished 2 Tara and Tyrone novels. They were entitled Tara and Tyrone, Stuck in the Mud, and Tara and Tyrone, Pedro the Pump. She did this with the help of Jake, who was in charge of illustrations. Before she passed, Emmy finished almost all of her 3rd book, Tara and Tyrone, Lost at Sea. Jake made it his mission to complete the book as close to how Emmy would have wanted it to be. The profits from these novels are donated to the Royal Marsden Hospital. He even admitted that he speaks to her every single day and will never stop loving her. Jake never expected his life to go in this direction, but he is motivated to honor her memory and spread her dreams and plans. He says, "Go to your husband or your wife, your partner or your lover. Embrace them. Hold them that little bit longer." After everything he has gone through with losing his wife and finding love again, Jake is determined to share his past with the rest of the world. Jake has continued to live a life of his own and do what he loves. His Instagram shows various trips and adventures, as well as his passion for animals and art as a whole. Not only that, but Jake talks to her and finds beauty in almost every aspect of life because of her. His outlook is truly admirable. On the 2-year anniversary of Emmy's death, Jake posted a heartfelt Instagram post talking about his beloved wife, his missing half, and how he thinks about her every day. It is truly amazing to see how one woman inspired so many people in her journey and has motivated those to care for the cause. Emmy lives on in her family, friends who regularly still support charities in her name, run marathons in her honor, and cherish the memories they have with her. Jake Coates decided to step away from his medical career and pursue one in art. He has become an avid artist and commissions on a regular basis. However, he is still thinking of illustrating a children's book that encompasses a love hive and his wife have for their poodle. However, he does personalized portraits of animals for owners, which are really and truly breathtaking. The pair were both animal lovers, and this is seen in Jake's art as he creates art of all different animals, mainly dogs. Jake always discusses Emmy as Molly's wife and feels her presence through their darling dog child. Their beloved poodle Molly lives side by side with Jake, and the pair are often adventuring, traveling, and spending time together. You can see just how talented Jake is, and it is good to know he has been inspired to pursue his passions in life. A recent artwork of Jake's was sent all the way to Florida for this chimpanzee who resides there named Lambani. Emmy's last days were spent with her beloved husband and Pooch. She lived her life loved and valued by all those around her. It is evident her memory lives on, and her husband will forever continue her legacy. Dreams and take care of their darling Pooch, too. Emmy taught all those around her a life lesson, one with love and kindness.